Hello, my name is Lena Norms, and today we're going to be talking about normal people. Not norm people, not my people, but the normal people. And two particular normal people, Connell and Marianne from Sally Rooney's Normal People. I'm going to be discussing why I think the novel Normal People is such a phenomenon here, and I'm going to be discussing what I think of the very recent BBC 3 adaptation of the book into a TV series here. But if you are planning to imminently watch the BBC 3 adaptation and haven't yet, I'm going to give you a tiny little warning. And it's not the warning you were expecting, but it's genuinely it's the warning you need. For those of us particularly prone to what I'll call self-fringing, need to cut into it like that, and are particularly vulnerable to the seductive calls of the lockdown fringe, just need to warn you that Daisy Edgar-Jones has an incredible fringe in this, and we must reach inside ourselves and find control. Before we begin proceedings, just a quick rundown for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about. Normal People. What is it? What are Normal People? Normal People is a novel written in 2018 by Sally Rooney, who was born in 1991 and is therefore younger than me. It follows the in and outs and on again, off again relationship between Marianne, who is a upper middle class, privileged survivor of domestic violence, bullied teenage girl, and a boy who lives in the same town. Why can't I say town? And a boy who lives in the same town as her in Sligo, which is in the west of the Republic of Ireland, who's called Connell. He comes from a single parent working class background, is at once lost and very popular at school. That year it was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, was named Waterstone's Book of the Year, and won Best Novel at the Costa Awards. Not only that, but it seemed to penetrate all of my social circles. I didn't seem to be able to escape it. Made more interesting by the fact that her previous book, Conversations with Friends, that I didn't really like, provoked, as Normal People does, this kind of like Marmite evangelicalism about which book was better, why one book was worse than the other. I put aside my reservations, picked up Normal People, and haven't looked back since. It's one of my favourite books of all time. And some people don't agree. Normal People was superficial, unoriginal, and trivial. This is one of the most overrated books I've read in a long time. I'm so mad and underwhelmed by this book, I want my time back. I thought this book would never end. I assumed this book would pick up. It never did. Thanks, I hate it. I felt that when I approached this video wanting to talk about my honest feelings about the new adaptation, I had to first contextualise it in a 6-part defence about why Normal People is a great novel. I've actually got 8, I was wrong. I have 8. You don't have to change your mind, but I feel like so many people have misunderstood. So if you're somebody who doesn't like Normal People, but seeks to understand people who do, here are 6 reasons why people who love Normal People probably love Normal People. Number 1, Normal People is a romance novel. Yes, it's a book about love. But it's a book that acknowledges that the love is a defining relationship in both of those people's lives. Them ending up together is not necessarily the end goal of the narrative, and it never is the whole way through. It leaves room for relationships to have value outside of our very boring idea of eternity, and it's helped many of us who struggle with that to make peace with it. Number 2, what I found unique about this book is that the points of views aren't, oh, here's Connell's bit, here's Marianne's bit, let's flip the book and read it from another perspective. You don't hear one person's point of view one after the other, you kind of hear them together, sometimes in the same paragraph, even the same sentence. It's kind of like watching a figure skater land a very precise jump when you see how Sally Rooney writes these scenes. And the writing technique of leaving out speech marks sometimes really annoys me, but with her, like Normal People's a book I can point to and be like, see, this is why some people are allowed not to use speech marks. We are allowed nice things. For me, it demonstrated perfectly how painful crushes can be at that age, but as you move into your 20s, and I assume your 30s, how exaggerated your movements feel around them, how much is hanging on every single sentence. And while I see that alluded to in other books, I rarely feel it. I rarely see a genuine depiction of the real gravity and the stakes, whilst not like pantomiming it and overblowing it. It's like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just when people are like, oh, I hate books like this because the whole plot wouldn't happen if they just told each other how they felt. Why don't they just tell each other how they feel? And to those people I say, well done. Good for you. Luck has been a lady in your life. If you've successfully been able to tell everybody in your life exactly how you feel about them at the moment that you probably should, then maybe you don't need this book. But trust me, so many of us are so acutely shit at this that it is nice to watch 2 people failing at it for 300 pages, okay? At the moment we get a lot of like books that are about like subversions of what you expect. You expect this character to be weak? Well, they're strong. You expect this character to be quiet? Well, they're loud. Prejudices? Gone. When it comes to gender, at least, the battle for gender neutrality when it comes to what we assume about people isn't just to be fought with these like strong female heroes, it's also to be fought in the nuances, in the creation of characters who embody contradictions. In the character of Marianne, we don't just get the bones of a headstrong female character. We get the flesh, we get the muscles, we get the structure, we get the skin of her. The contradiction of her offering herself up to be literally trodden on by Connell, whilst also kicking up like the biggest fuss if her teacher tells her to look in a certain direction. In Connell, we get this kind of soft masculinity that's very pliable when it comes to peer pressure. In the book, he says he struggles to know who he is because his identity is so much constructed around reputation. He's grown up in a very small community where everybody already knows his name. He's never really introduced himself to anyone, and he's never had to make an impression on anyone and therefore decide who the hell he is. Is that an excuse for how he treats Marianne at some points in the book? No, but it's an explanation that's a lot more helpful and a lot more nuanced than men are trash or he's a misunderstood mysterious angel. Number 5, it's been hailed a lot as a millennial love story for 2 reasons, I think. One of them is that these 2 characters give each other their bodies before they give each other their minds. What they really struggle with is how they guard their personalities against each other and their minds, not their bodies. Sex first, romance later, which in this kind of post no sex before marriage society is much more realistic. And I think as a generation we genuinely lack honest portrayals of that, and potentially particularly magnified by the society and the country that it's set in. I also think the comment that it's a millennial love story is fair because one of the reasons I think this novel is so interesting to me and fascinating to me is because of the way it explores class. The political backdrop of the novel is that it happens in 2008 when the crash happens. The crash, remember the crash? It was the thing before the virus and the fires, and the effect that it had on the young Irish people at that time and how they thought about money and class since then. Marianne is bullied in that way that rich, clever kids are, in a way that kind of fascinates me, by the cool kids who kind of sense that their time at the top is finite and they kind of want to get a few kicks in before systemic privilege pushes them to the bottom. It's Connell who's indifferent and a little cruel to Marianne at the beginning, but it's also her that suggests to him that he should read the Communist Manifesto. She even offers to write it down for him if he can't remember the name of it. And he's like, I have read the Communist Manifesto. And she's like, oh, I haven't. And maybe those kids who bully rich, clever kids are right, because when they go to the great leveller together, university, it actually drives the 2 further apart. Marianne finds her people. When it comes to upper middle class Trinity students, she is socially lubed to the max. And Connell becomes the kind of scorned, unpopular one when he learns that what makes you powerful as an adolescent doesn't necessarily make you powerful as an adult. Connell also delivers this scorching burn. It was a culture as class performance. Literature fetishized for its ability to take educated people on false emotional journeys. All books were ultimately marketed as status symbols, and all writers participated to some degree in its marketing. Literature, in the way it appeared at these public readings, had no potential as a form of resistance to anything. Served. Number 7, it subverts the forbidden desire narrative. There's this horrible moment about a third of the way through the book. Kind of spoiler alert, but I think the third of the book the way is fine. When Connell realises he has been hiding this relationship with Marianne from his friends because he's embarrassed and he thinks that it will be awful for him. And his friends kind of turn around at their leaving cert and are like, mate, we knew you were sleeping with her all along and we don't really care. By this point, he's already given up his relationship with Marianne through fear of being rejected. In this modern post-class barrier world, Marianne and Connell are from completely different backgrounds, but they're allowed to exist in the same places, in school, in university. It's the mental barriers, the almost inherited instinctual barriers that stop them from being able to be together. And you can kind of understand, as a young working class boy, Connell can't really risk being ousted by the group, at least not in his head. He doesn't have the same systemic crutches as Marianne does when it comes to connections, money, authority. And maybe because we also learn that his mum had him when she was 16, and he sees what being shunned by a small town community can do to a person. Number 8, it's a book that shows the power of words, which is probably why everybody in publishing jizzes all over it. What fascinates me is they're 2 people that are so taken with words and so shit at being able to find the right ones at the right time for each other. They both read a lot, Connor writes a lot, and yet they can't get it together. But there's this beautiful line in it. Connell reads Emma when he's at university and loves it. We love a man who loves Emma. Just as he reaches the passage in Emma, when it seems Mr. Knightley is going to marry Harriet, he had to close the book and walk home in a state of strange emotional agitation. He's amused at himself getting wrapped up in the drama of novels like that. It feels intellectually unserious to concern himself with fictional people marrying one another. But there it is, literature moves him. One of his professors calls it the pleasure of being touched by great art. In those words, it almost sounds sexual. In a way, the feeling provoked in Connell when Mr. Knightley kisses Emma's hand is not completely asexual, though its relation to sexuality is indirect. And here's the key sentence. It suggests to Connell that the same imagination he uses as a reader is necessary to understand real people also, and to be intimate with them. Can we find a better fictional poster boy for the value of books? Okay. Normal people defended. Can we all carry on now? What did I think of the show? Well, I was very nervous. This is a book where most of the action happens in the characters' heads. That's what it's supposed to be. For those of the people on Goodreads who say it doesn't have any plot, that's what it's supposed to be. And being able to do that on screen without Sally Rooney narrating, possible? BBC Three let me have a digital press pass to watch the first 6 episodes, and after I peed my pants a little bit, I binged them all, and here's how I feel. To be honest, going in, I kind of thought Normal People would work better as a feature film. I guess in retrospect, because I feel that feature films get more budget, people let them be slower and quieter, and I guess generally I have found that feature films are a higher quality. But 2 episodes in, I realised that I really love that it's a TV show. Trying to fit all the subtlety of the book into a film would have been really stressful. It's 12, 20 to 30 minute episodes in total, so a total of 6 hours to watch altogether. And when you think about the fact that the audiobook is like 8 hours, you're actually spending quite a comparably same amount of time with the characters as you would with the book. I'm really happy with the length of the episodes because it means, let's be real, because there's not much plot, you don't have to artificially insert loads of peaks and troughs in the plot to keep your attention for an hour. You just get these little beautiful succulent little chunks of sugared cube to chew on for 20 minutes. Professional TV reviews with Lena. You get filled up nicely without feeling like you're gonna puke. I also didn't realise that Lenny Abraham was Abraham's son? Isn't everybody a son of Abraham? Lenny Abraham's son? Reuben was the eldest of the children of Israel, with Simeon and Levi the next. Right, concentrate. Lenny Abrahamson directed this. He is the director of Room. If I'd known that was happening, I wouldn't have been panicking for the last 3 months before this came out. He uses a very similar style in Room, which I personally love. A lot of close-up shots with the blurry backgrounds. What do you call that? Bokeh. Lots of breathy, loud sound design. Lots of beautiful, ethereal greys and blues. Triangle music. There's got to be a better word for that. Do you know what I mean? With the triangle, it kind of makes it feel like normal, but also a little bit magic. And some Imogen Heap in the soundtrack. All of which is catnip for me. And if you like that kind of thing too, I think you're going to love this. It also, to me feels a little bit before series, which I'll get into later, but I'm like a very evangelical member of the Before series club. Like I love that film series. Not for everyone, but for me. It also stayed quite close to the book. I have read the book previously, but I actually went and turned to the audiobook and read the audiobook before watching the series, just to refresh in my mind what was an invention and what was not. Sally Rooney co-wrote the script, which I think had a lot to do with it, but actually there were very few details changed. There was like one that annoyed me that was like Connell rings and professes his love for Marianne at the end of their school life together, which doesn't happen in the books, and I think that's kind of like one of the key pivotal things that makes why it ended so ambiguous and so frustrating and makes it so good. So that was a little bit too on the nose for me. And another on the nose moment that is just so implied in the book is that Marianne literally in the TV show is like, you try to act like your friends, but you're not like them at all. Which is just too explicit for me. It's too like, yeah, we get it, he's not, okay. They moved a few scenes that originally took place in the bedroom or the living room and kind of put them in public spaces like hallways, which is a bit weird. They also made the choice to do it in a linear way, which I guess I'm just not even like used to as an audience member anymore, because everybody wants to subvert everything by taking everything out of the linear narrative, like Little Women and Marriage Story. Oh, hey, that's the thing. If you like Marriage Story, you'll probably like this. But I thought about it and I decided it was quite a good choice for Normal People, because it's important to the story that you don't retrospectively know what this relationship means to them in the future. It makes their relationship feel as precarious to us as it does to them. And it could legit end at any moment, even though we know it's a love story. Okay, the casting of the couple. They cast 2 like kind of experienced but relatively unknown actors at these parts, which I think was perfect. Does the casting of Marianne kind of remind me of Dakota Johnson and Anne Hathaway and Melanie Murphy all at the same time. Yes, but is she her own person too? Totally. And she's really incredible. Like, really good. Like Anne Hathaway good, I think. She's really good. Connell was perfect. He was like, he's just how I picture Connell now, and was quite close to how I pictured Connell before in the book. He's these really like harsh, beautiful, but not like stereotypically clean features. And they just had this amazing chemistry together, and I just love it. My other favourite thing was the casting of the mum, Lorraine. She's the warm moral compass of the story and is kind of a rock for both characters throughout the book. She's played by the Irish actor Sarah Green, who was really good in Rebellion, and I was so happy to see her again. And I know that she stars in the film Rosie, which I'm definitely going to see now. There is a lot of sex in this TV show. And to be honest, it'd be weird if there wasn't. It's such a big part of their relationship. There is also a brave amount of nudity for a BBC Three show that, let's be real, is going to be watched by teenagers. But the nudity is so normalised and awkward and sweet and not sensationalised. I've put in my notes, we see boob and fanny and Willy. But seriously, Willie's on BBC Three, who knew? But I like that the nudity was equal. We often just see the woman, let's be real. They also slip in some off-book sex education. Love it. There is a part that is in the book where Connell teaches Marianne the politics of nude selfies and like who she should send them to and who she shouldn't, and what her rights are around them. But then they put in this other bit when they first have sex where Connell makes it like so clear to Marianne that she can stop at any moment. And she's like, no, I don't think I want to stop. And he's like, yes, but if you do, it won't be awkward. We'll just stop and that would be fine. Just say. A hero for our time. So to sum up, disaster averted. As a huge fan of normal people, I feel relieved, I feel vindicated, I feel respected, I feel heard, I feel seen. NME called it Hollyoaks for the art crowd, which I don't know whether to be offended by or like deeply, profoundly agree with. But whatever it was, I just couldn't look away. The way it was shot and the actors just have this gravity and this magnetism to it that kind of is the same with the book. Like once you start listening or reading the book, you'll know that you kind of just get sucked in. I really like this point that Ben Travers made when he wrote about it in IndieWire. He said, "Love finds many forms, but it remains at the core of all love stories. To rekindle the flame, each new entry just has to recognise it's been told before and then find a compelling reason to tell it again, now." When people go, the story of normal people has been told before, they look at me defiantly like I'm about to disagree. Frankly, my opinion is that people need to stop being angry at stories for not being other stories. Normal People is a love story, and quite a simple one at that, but it also earns its place in the now as a new old love story because it acknowledges that in this ever more performative world, the value of relationships that don't just end in marriage or babies, but in something much simpler, in making life possible for each other, which is something that Marianne says in the book. She says that she believes that she's made a better life seem possible to Connell. And to her, he brought her a goodness like a gift, and now it belonged to her. Do you see that? Do you see how healthy that is? That he brought her goodness, but now it's hers? She's not dependent on him forever. He gave her something. Her dependence made her independent. They're two characters that while the whole way through the book you wonder whether they're right for each other or if they're going to end up together. You have no doubt that they're good for each other. That they're improving each other's lives, they're allowing each other to perform less and live more, which why might be like incredibly cheesy to hear. Cliches are cliches for a reason. Sometimes you need to hear that, sometimes you need to watch that, sometimes you need to read that. Yeah, it's a really quite simple story, but for me I couldn't look away. Perhaps because the story of Marianne and Connell isn't about subverting the normal. It's about how two people who love each other can have very different normals and also have a normal that exists in the space between them, which is something that actually is said in the book. I think the book is about how normals can contradict each other and kind of like questions whether they can ever be reconciled. So, Sally Rooney, this is a warning, I'm going to be knocking on your door in the year 2028 for a before series style sequel in which you can tell us whether they can be reconciled. Please. But until then, just thank you. And I guess thank you also to the crew and the cast and everyone who made the show. Is it normal to end a review with a weird emotional thank you speech? But what is normal? Am I right? It came back around. But is it normsal? Oh, week 5 of quarantine and the jokes are getting beyond dad. Normal People drops in the UK, and I mean drops, like manna from the heavens, like stalks from the sky, on the 26th of April on Sunday. I have seen the first 6 episodes, but I'll be watching the other 6 along with you. Apparently it was one of the last programmes to wrap before the lockdown, and thank God for this gift during this time. And also, I think it's great that they're not eking it out week by week. Like, we just need to binge this right now, together. Are you going to watch Normal People on Sunday? If you're watching this after Sunday, have you watched Normal People? What do you think? I want to discuss it all in the comments below. If you had not been here before but would like to be here again, the subscribe button is right there. This video is completely free to watch and enjoy, but if you would like to be one of the people who makes these videos possible, you can look into joining the Gumption Club, link below. More videos like this one here. You can sign up to my newsletter that comes out every Sunday down here. And until next time. Frogs bug out!